is helping your child to succeed and the role of self-regulation. Today, we'll be discussing this topic in much greater detail with Dr. Bala M. Pillai. Thank you so much, Dr. Bala, for joining us today. I'll be coming to your introduction shortly. Before that, this webinar is brought to you by Eblity. It is an organization focused on kids with special needs and slow learners. It is a platform for parents, special educators, therapists, and schools to create and collaborate unique and individualized plans for each student. So keep looking for announcements about new tools coming from Eblity soon, because very soon we are launching a bunch of exciting tools through which all our community members can benefit. This webinar is in partnership with Playground to Learn. It is an organization based out of New Jersey, USA. It is focused in making a change for the students and making a positive difference in children who have challenges in their ability to focus, participate with peers in physical activities, or the ones who struggle academically. This organization is dedicated to offer their support through non-invasive, evidence-based methodologies and interventions. We are truly excited to have this webinar in partnership with Playground to Learn. So that was about the organizing members. Now, here's how you can get more benefit and help from Eblity. As all of you who have attended our past webinars must be aware that every time you register for an Eblity webinar, you would be receiving these 2 emails from the Eblity customer success team. One will have the unique login credentials of your Eblity account, and the other one will be sent to you when the resources from this particular webinar are uploaded into your personal library. So what you need to do is you need to click on the login button on any of these 2 emails, and then you would be redirected to this page. Here in the email ID and password, you need to enter the unique login credentials that has been shared with you via the email. Remember to check the promotions folder as well, because sometimes the email might go into the promotions folder. And that's it. Once you click on sign in, you'll be redirected to your personal library, your Eblity account, where you can access resources from all the past webinars. All you need to do is click on this blue colored button which says view resource, and the slide decks, the questionnaires, and the webinar recordings from the past webinars and this webinar would be available for you all to access. So do log in, and I hope most of you can benefit from this. And before I proceed to introduce our speaker for the day, we had received a couple of requests in the last webinar, saying that some of you need the help of an interpreter. So we wanted to understand if you all need an interpreter to fully experience this webinar. So I'm going to launch a quick poll so that we can get the numbers, and accordingly we can take the measures which can help you better. So if you could answer this question quickly for us, we would be grateful. Yeah, I'll give another 10 seconds for you all to answer this poll. Great. So looks like most of you have answered it for us. Thank you so much. We'll definitely consider the responses that you have shared with us in the polls today. Thank you so much for sharing your opinion with us. So our speaker for the day, we are truly privileged to have Dr. Bala M. Pillai, who's the founder of Playground to Learn, New Jersey, USA, here with us today. She is joining us from New Jersey, and it is quite early on a Saturday morning, but she has taken the effort to help the community members. So we are truly grateful to you, Dr. Bala. And a few words about her introduction. She has a doctorate in physical therapy, and also she is a board certified physical therapist. Founder and director, like already stated, Playground to Learn, LLC, New Jersey, USA. It provides advocacy and comprehensive developmental services for children. She's been a consultant for educationally relevant physical therapy services in New Jersey-based public and private schools for more than 25 years now. She sees children of all abilities and children who struggle academically and socially with or without a medical diagnosis. We are truly, truly grateful to have you here with us, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Swati. It is such a pleasure to be here today. Welcome, everybody. And yes, you can still hear the sleep in my voice. But Eblity, I was very excited when I was invited by Eblity, because I think what you're doing is really giving us professionals such a beautiful opportunity. This is a platform for us to reach out to the community. And to me, I'm most passionate about parents. I'm very, very passionate about helping parents, because I am a child advocate. So thank you so much for giving us this opportunity, and everyone else who's here to attend the webinar, taking the time out. I totally appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to answering all your questions. When I was talking to Eblity and they asked me to talk about something, and I asked them what would they want me to talk about, and they said self-regulation, I was like, oh my God, this is my favorite topic. It is something that I feel everyone, all of us, whether we have special needs or not, every one of us needs self-regulation. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Let me see.
Sure. Over to you, Dr. Bala. Thank you so much.
Okay, and so we started off saying we're going to be doing, what makes a child successful. I think for most parents, it is that they study well, and success is different for different people. So I just wanted to sort of make you all reflect about what your idea of success is for yourself and for your child. Now, I have had the opportunity to interact with thousands of parents, professionals, administrators, support staff, and with all their different personalities and mindsets. And the one thing that I found common amongst all of them who did achieve their goals and were successful was their narrative about stress and failure. So I just want to, sort of take a quick poll on what your idea of success is. So do you think it is making money and having a big house and a fancy car? Is it about fancy vacations and flying first class? Is it about being good in studies? Is it having children who are doing well and eventually go get well-paid jobs? Is it connected in any way to our stress response? Just want you all to think about that. And I love Michelle Obama, and I love what she has to say about success. She says, success isn't about how your life looks to others. It's about how it feels to you. And I bring this up because a lot of times when parents come to me, and I have a very, very special interest in children on the spectrum, and I actually have an interest in anyone who struggles, whether they have a diagnosis or not. And one of the things that most parents share with me is they want their child to be like the other kids. So that's something that I always tell them, don't worry about that. Just make sure that you are comfortable and your child is being accepted just the way they are and they are happy. So moving forward, can we control our success? I feel I've not really read any research study on this, but I feel it's really related to our coping skills. And to understand that better, I think it would be a good idea if we understand how we recruit our coping skills, how our nervous system helps us, what is the role of play in our emotional experiences, in resetting our emotional experiences, And what is the impact? In fact, the very profound impact of our early learning experiences on emotional development. So as a pediatric therapist, I strive to provide the tools to help parents gain confidence in their parenting skills so they can create the family life that they deserve. And it is such a nice feeling when I see them go through that journey of going from overwhelm, hopelessness, to then gaining the tools and feeling empowered to make very informed decisions on how they can actually help their child. Working in school environments, it's a little bit different from working in educational environments, and it took me some time to understand what that was. But one of the best things that working in educational environments is I got an idea of how the child had challenges in their natural environments. So in school, they're spending a lot of time in school, and I had a very good opportunity to see that. What struck me the most was nearly every child, in fact, I would say each and every child, maybe there was just like 2% that did not have stress. Most of them had a lot of stress. And if you have stress, you can't really learn anything. And I'm a physical therapist. Most of my activities would be fun-based, but if they were scared, it did not, they could not really do a good job in participating. So what I did was I went and got certified in stress management tools. Both are research-based. One is BrainGym and the other is HeartMath. And both are based on the autonomic nervous system. And BrainGym gives me more of movements. And HeartMath gave me real-time tools to actually address stress and to even monitor it. So BrainGym is something that I used a lot in schools because it has a lot of movements. I couldn't use it in its full form, but at least some of the movements, and it helped a lot. Children were doing so good. The teachers were coming to me and saying, what did you do with them? Because their focus and attention improved. So movement is definitely something that helps children decrease their stress levels. So what is self-regulation? Self-regulation is our ability to control strong emotional impulses for the sake of achieving another goal. And all of us, we all are, using our self-regulation skills with some level of success throughout the day. And it is, it can easily start very early with children, and there has been a test that was done. It's called the mushroom test, and telling a child not to eat something that they like. And the research on that was pretty incredible. I'm going to share the results in a minute. But it's like telling a child, keeping something in front of the child and you're telling them that they have to wait for some time. So it is very, very difficult, obviously, for children when we start off. It's also the impulse when they want to just pull somebody's hair or something and then trying to keep their hands to themselves and behave in an appropriate way. That is really, again, self-regulation. And for the adults who don't have very good self-regulation skills, when they grow up and interact with children, they show that when they are interacting with them because they are losing their cool and yelling at them or whatever. So self-regulation, if you have not developed it when you were growing up, it's going to be something that's going to be reflected in the way you are caring for children later on. But luckily, it's a skill that everyone can learn at any age. So why is self-regulation so important? The research says that it is the predictor of mental health difficulties, anxiety, depression, ADHD. It's associated with low academic outcomes, increased risk for drug abuse and obesity, increased aggression and violence, and risky sexual behaviors. And I'm going to take all this and tie it in when I explain more about the autonomic nervous system and our stress response. So what matters in brain development and why and how? And the reason why I want to go into a little bit of details in this is because I found that when I used to give recommendations to the teachers and to the support staff, they all have the good intentions of doing it regularly, but I found that the compliance rate in following through with the recommendations was a lot more when I explained how it impacted the brain. And it was amazing. I just always am amazed when people know exactly how you are impacting the brain and how much you can help the child, because I think anyone working with a child really wants what's best for the child. So explaining to them how it makes such a big difference to their brain development, they get very compliant. And being compliant with the recommendations is really one of the most important things, because then we leverage what we call the neuroplasticity principles in changing the structure of the brain and the function of the brain. So, we can do a lot for the brain if we know how to leverage the neuroplasticity principles. So why there are two things that makes a very big impact on brain development is the early caregiving environments. And why does it matter so much? Today, I'm going to try and explain that to you. And how can movement experiences also impact brain development? I'm going to go a little bit into some critical time periods. And this is just an overview. In half an hour, I won't be able to do too much. So I'm going to try, I don't want to cramp in too much information, but I want to give you some important information. So I'm going to say, how long does it take for self-regulation to develop? That's something that, sometimes parents keep asking me. And I'm like, it takes a very, very, very long time in humans. It takes almost 23 years. So the first thing that develops is something that's called co-regulation. And co-regulation depends entirely on the self-regulation ability of the caregivers in the child's life. So it's very important that the caregivers or the adult who is with the child, it doesn't have to be only, a parent, it could be grandparents, it could be siblings, it could be anyone who is with the child most of the time. Their ability to self-regulate makes a very big difference on the child's ability to self-regulate, because we first co-regulate and then we self-regulate. So again, it's very dependent on early experiences, and the emotional brain, and I'm going to go a little bit on that again, the emotional brain is shaped by our early experiences. So when we are born with a very basic primitive brain, and that's called the reptilian brain. And the main function of that brain is survival. So it's all the automatic functions like breathing, digestion, circulation, all those things are the function of the primitive brain. And if there's any threat to our survival, it's going to be working, and it's very, very, very strong. And then as the child starts growing, the baby starts growing, the emotional brain starts developing. And the experiences, the positive and negative emotions that the child experiences is going to make a big difference on how they can recruit it. Because as with every thought and emotion, it's having an impact on the brain structure. So if they're feeling more of negative emotions, that is what is going to be reinforced. And if they're feeling more of positive, so if they're feeling loved and supported, and they're having good, nice, healthy interactions with the adults, then that is how their emotional brain is going to be shaped. And this is happening, till around 13 years. And then you have the neocortex, and you can see the neocortex is more the thinking part of it. It's the executive part, executive skills, your ability to problem solve, to be creative, your academic skills and everything. I mean, it's not that you don't have your academic skills before that, but our ability to fully use it is completed around 23 years. The neocortex is the one that is more like a regulator. It controls our emotional brain and our amygdala. I'm going to go into that a little bit, when we are having negative thoughts and things like that. But that doesn't develop until around 13 years. And it needs the connection, going from the emotional brain to the neocortex and then coming back. And that takes about 23 years. So it's very, very important that we deal with children on an emotional level and not ask them to think about things. You first make them feel better because they are from their heart level, they are from their emotional brain. So this is a very important thing. We're going to go really quickly. The amygdala is in the limbic, in the emotional brain, and it is connected with, your fear reflex. So it's very, very strong in children, and it's very reactive because the nervous system, the main function of the nervous system is survival. So if for any reason a child picks up any cues that they are not safe, it's going to be active. And in an adult brain, the neocortex is going to have the controlling effect on it. But in children, especially up to 13, it is the effect of the caregivers and how the caregivers are reacting with them. So that's really very important. The reactivity of the amygdala is more when the child is younger, and it becomes less and less as the child grows. And of course, it's controlled a lot when the neocortex is completely developed. Like I said, caregivers make a very big difference to the child. So it's really nice if the child has, of course, if all the caregivers are good, is very good. But the research says that even if there's one person who believes in the child completely and who doesn't give up on the child, it does make a difference. And of course, the most ideal would be if it is a parent at home and the teacher in school. So I just wanted to say, when the adult is, there are ways in which we reprimand and the way we shape. But if you start, trying to teach them lessons when they are upset, they're not going to learn. I just want to share a funny story. Now my children are grown up, but I remember when I used to try and talk to my son, and all of us have made mistakes, in our parenting, we're all learning. But I remember when I used to sit him down and I would talk to him and I would think, yeah, I'm doing a great job. And I remember he would be on the stairs and I would be talking to him. And I could slowly then start just seeing him smiling. And it would get me so mad. But after, when he was, when they were older and we would talk about all our childhood experiences, I used to tell him, that's the one thing that you used to do that used to get me so mad. And he said, Mom, I used to just, he said, you used to talk so much. Like I would just see your mouth moving and it would make all these funny shapes. And that's what I was watching and smiling. And I was like, my God, I learned something from my son. Do not talk to them too much when you are disciplining them. Just be right to the point. So I'm sure all of you all can, not all, but most of you can identify with that. So again, what is really co-regulation? Co-regulation is so important that I said self-regulation is not developed right from the beginning. It is co-regulation, and it occurs between a child and a warm, responsive caregiver, where the caregiver meets the child's physical and emotional needs and soothes and calms the child when they're experiencing those big emotions. This in turn builds the neural architecture, which is necessary for the child to self-regulate. This is so important because we're shaping the emotional brain for the child. So, we are mammals. And so even you can see there are mammals that also co-regulate, and we are humans. And it's very important that we, our early caregiving experiences are shaping and nurturing our brain the way it should be. So now I'm going to move on and just give you a little bit of an idea of how the nervous system is the system that regulates our behavior and our emotions. And it consists of the central nervous system and the peripheral. I just went over the central nervous system with you with the brain. The peripheral nervous system has the autonomic nervous system and the somatic. And we are concerned more with the autonomic. It's very easy to remember what the autonomic nervous system does because it's all the automatic functions. It's the functions of the heart, of the liver, of the lungs, all those things that we do not have control over. So it's all the automatic functions. And it has two important branches, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So a very easy way of remembering is, whenever we get stressed, we we get engaged in our stress response, and that is the sympathetic. So the sympathetic actually has, it gets our body ready to fight or to escape. And the innovation of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic is almost to the same organs, you know. So you have the sympathetic that gets us all ready to fight, as it, you know, causes dilation in our eyes, our heart rate goes up, we start breathing fast, and, you know, all these different organs. And the same thing happens, the same organs are innervated by the parasympathetic. So once the fight and flight is taken care of and the stress is gone down, parasympathetic takes over. So it's like rest and digest. You can consider it like the brake pedal and the sympathetic as the gas pedal. So it just cools everything down, calms everything down, and then we can do things like eating and studying and things like that. So the person who first, you know, made us aware of it he's a physiologist, he's Walter Cannon, and he told us there are two responses. One is the fight and the other is the flight. So we have seen this. I'm going to refer, this is seen in everybody, but I'm going to talk mainly about children. So you will see it, you know, you'll see it in their eyes. It's more like a hyper arousal. They're always looking to see, like, for escape. So that's one of the things you see. Then you may see like a little bit of trembling. You can see that you won't be able to see their heart rate going up, but you will know that their breathing has changed and they get a little bit flushed. So you can see it, or you can see the reaction on the person. There will be a change in them. And I can easily make out, I don't know whether I'm a physical therapist, I think most mothers will pick it up too. You can see that they're ready, you know, their whole body gets toned and things like that. So to run. So in children, we clearly see it as when they feel a little bit of threat, they want to first run. And if for any reason they can't run, then they're going to fight. And if that doesn't work too, I see it later on as they grow up, they freeze, which basically means that they isolate themselves, or I'm going to go into that a little bit more. Now we have a lot more, a much better understanding about our stress response. And Dr. Stephen Porges, he's a neuroscientist. And in 1994, he gave to us the polyvagal theory and gives an explanation, a much deeper explanation of our stress response. And I think it's really important for all of us to know more about it. He talks about, you know, our behaviors and everything, it is dependent on neurophysiological state. That is the platform from how we respond. So I'm going to go a little bit into it and explain that. He found out that it's not just two responses. It is the flight, fight, and the freeze response. And why does that make such a big difference? It was pretty revolutionary because the freeze response is what we see in children who withdraw, you know, who are suicidal, you know, the ones who have a lot of trauma. So they're not fighting or they're not running away. So it was an addition which I knew even before his information, what Dr. Stephen Porges had shared. But what is really revolutionary about what he shared with us from his research work is the neural systems that are recruited during freeze. It's not the sympathetic, it's the parasympathetic, but it's a completely different parasympathetic, meaning it's a primitive parasympathetic. So it's not the sympathetic nervous system, which is in human beings, with the neocortex. This is connected more with the primitive brain that the child is born with. And that's not myelinated. The other parasympathetic is myelinated. So he explained it and he said it is because the nervous system has a function called neuroception, and it is the subconscious ability for us to detect threats, risks, and safety. And it's a very, very primal function of the nervous system. So neuroception is what will set the tone for that platform that I was talking about. And there are 3 different neural networks. By the time we we basically shape, I'm making it really very simple, rather he made it very simple. And he said, look at it as we have a choice of recruiting three nervous systems, pathways. So think of the traffic lights, it would be the red, the green, and the yellow. So when we are in a defensive mode, we will be recruiting the red and the yellow. And when we are in a socially engaged, when we are feeling safe, we will be recruiting the green. So again, whatever our emotional experiences were, they shape our go-to strategies by the time we become adults. So if we used more of the red, then it's going to show in the way we respond when we're adults. If we used more of the green or the yellow, then those are the neural circuits we're going to be using. So when do we use the yellow? We use the yellow when we have past memories about something, and if it wasn't pleasant, it could be with the person, it could be with the place, anything, it's going to get us to be in our defensive mode. And it's also associated with how, the child is feeling judged, if they're blamed, if they're humiliated, if they're shamed, or if they're made to feel guilty. All these things will automatically, I want everyone to understand that it automatically puts their nervous system in a defensive mode. You can't control that. Your emotions, you cannot control it. And this is very reflexive. So they are going to be in this mode where it is defensive. And when you're on the defensive mode, you're not in the zone to pay attention or to learn or do any of that, because you're just, you feel your survival is threatened. But if it is a much deeper level, then you are going to use your red neural track, which tells you that you're in danger. Your survival is really threatened. And you either freeze or you get suicidal or you shut down, so it's all those type of features you're going to see in your child. And when you recruit the one that, where we could actually use our neocortex and our thinking skills, would be the green one, and you problem solve, you get very creative, you socialize better, and you play and respond like the way we would, want people to respond instead of reacting. So once again, when you engage with the green track, it is you're feeling safe and you can engage. When you feel there's danger, you're going to go use either your fight or your flight. And when you think your life is actually being threatened, you go into the shutdown mode and you use the red track. So again, I know there are many professionals over here too, so I'm going to go really quickly. I made this slide to, give you a review of everything that I said. I know it's a little bit heavy, but I'm going to try. The nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, is structured in a hierarchical structure. And we have three systems. The first system is the social engagement system, which is for breath, heartbeat, facial expression, and voice. The second one is the sympathetic, where it mobilizes us. And the third is the primitive, parasympathetic. So the social engagement system is the myelinated system, and it really is very quick. So we are always using that first. And we use that based on our feelings of safety, whether we are safe or we're not safe. So I'm going to first talk about when we feel safe. When we are safe and we want to do something, then our heart rate goes up and we can engage in work, art, play, things like that. And a little bit more, and we can go into sleep, because that's what happens. Remember, when you're feeling safe, the parasympathetic is with decreasing your heart rate, your breathing comes to normal. So when you go into deeper, when your heart rate goes down even more, that's when sleep. And the beautiful thing that we know now is we're using that for meditation too. So what happens when we are not feeling safe? We first engage, it will first go to the green system, which is a social engagement system. But if the message comes down, this is all reflexively, when the message comes down that no, we are feeling threatened, then the child is going to try and run away first. And if that doesn't work, they're going to try and fight. And if that doesn't work, they are going to go into their shutdown mode and freeze or faint. When you are older, that's what you do. Even maybe children do. I have personally not seen that. I've heard about that only in adults, the fainting and dissociation. But they could get seizures, that could happen too. So now as a child, I said, growing up after 13, you may sort of connect with the social engagement system. But if you still feel threatened, you may not fight or flight, but you could resort to, manipulation, sarcasm, passive aggressive type of behaviors that we see more in adults. And you could see it in children too. So the nice thing is you can keep shifting between all these different stages. And that's what we want to leverage on. So if someone is engaging more in the negative, then we can get them to engage in the positive. And that's the beauty of our nervous system. I feel we're engineered so beautifully that we do have the choice. We have the choice, and we have the choice primarily because there's only one physiological function that is not under our control and under our control. And I would love for you guys to guess what that is. What do you think that is? And I'm sure all of you guessed right. It is our breathing. So breathing is something that it's our window of opportunity to get in there and change the state. This is the reason why just thinking about it is not going to make a difference, because thinking doesn't change the visceral responses. It's our breathing. And that will have an impact on our emotions because we are getting in through the parasympathetic through our breathing. So it's really important that we teach breathing skills to our children, effective, intentional breathing. I wanted to say this, I wanted to throw it in there and say that with strategy, when we are dealing with anyone, and of course with children, I'm going to talk a lot more, with strategy is the worst. Shame is definitely the worst. And you don't want to raise a child with shame because that becomes their self-talk. They start thinking they're stupid, they're not lovable, they're ugly, they're not worthy, and they're not extraordinary. That's what I find with neurotypical children is they feel that they are not extraordinary enough for the caregivers in their life. And we should just reflect when we are expecting too much from our children. So I'm sure all of y'all have got a very nice idea of why early childhood experiences matter so much. And I explained it to you that, babies when we are born, our brains are not fully developed. And I want you to think about it like a bit like building a house. The architectural blueprint may give a house its shape, but what it's made of, it depends on what it's made of, the straw, wood, or brick, that would give it very strong foundations. In the same way, our genetics gives us a blueprint for our brain structure, but all our experiences will shape it. So our thought, our actions, our emotions, those are the things that influence it. So I want to put it all together and say that when—
Dr. Bala?
Yes?
So sorry to interrupt you. We have been receiving a lot of questions in the chat box and otherwise as well. So I just wanted to let you know that we want to start taking those questions in another 10-15 minutes. So just wanted to let you know. So sorry.
Great. This is good timing. I'm nearly done. I'm trying to answer your questions too. So putting it all together, you can see over here, if the child was feeling very nurtured, they're going to have a very strong, well-built green network. And that would be their go-to. So it'd be easier to self-soothe this child. If the child has not been, has experienced a lot of blaming, shaming, and things like that, then we have basically shaped their yellow circuit very strong. And it's going to be a challenge getting that child to self-regulate. And if we have, the child has felt very threatened, and why do they feel threatened is when they don't feel loved or when they don't feel understood, then it's going to be their red pathway, which is going to be like their superhighway. And these children are the ones who are very difficult to soothe or to get self-regulation skills, because that's just what was shaped when they were growing up. So to help kids learn effective emotional control, parents can work to adopt better emotional regulation strategies themselves, model positive emotions and emotional regulation, expose kids to positive environments and people who show that, good self-regulation skills. And very, very, very important is schedule free interactive play into the daily schedule. Nowadays, children are so overstructured. They have so many things to do that we've forgotten about play skills. And free play is very important. I could give a 5-day lecture on that, but if your child is not getting enough play, give them play, and that would be really good. So learning positive behavior management is a very good skill for all caregivers to have. So their play is very important. Different types of plays there. We could do that. We could always expose them to that. And the way we give our feedback to our children and when we're shaping them, it's very important. I wish I knew this when my children were growing up. And it's how you give them feedback when when they're misbehaving. So one is we've got to first validate their feelings. Then we set boundaries, give them choices, and encourage the process and not the outcome. So given some examples, if you have, I give you a situation, and instead of saying what most people say, and then try what you're doing. So Radha cries to you, she comes to you because Mira's hit her back. And usually the response would be, that's what happens when you get hurt back. So I can see the response, you should try, and just try this and see if this works. And it is, you can say, I can see you are upset. So that's where you're validating that they are feeling something. And then you can say your boundary, the rule in this house is no hitting. And then you can give them the option. You can say, you can go to your safe corner, or you could practice your breathing. So hopefully, you are teaching your child these skills, and you can say, you can breathe in, you can give them a cue and say, breathe in, their favorite cookie or whatever, or a flower, and breathe out your anger, take your anger out. And then let them, give them the option of saying, if you can't do it, you can do it with me. And then whenever you're ready, you can go back to play. Another is if there's a child, Arjun uses bad language and directs it at you. So usually sometimes I find that teachers may say, do you want to get kicked out of the school like you got kicked out of your last school? Instead, if you try and say, you look mad, we don't use those kinds of words in our family. And instead of say, give them the choice, do 10 jumping jacks or 10 push-ups. It's a physical activity, so it's going to reset their nervous system, and it's going to have all the feel-good neurotransmitters flooding them. So it's a very good punishment to give them because it's actually helping their body reset. If you have another situation where Maya gets anxious during transitions and starts to toss things about in her classroom, and the usual reaction is go sit by yourself in the thinking chair. I'm tired of you breaking your things. That doesn't help the child reset at all. She's going to feel even more isolated. So it would be so much more better and so much more effective if the teacher or whoever the caregiver says, Maya, come on over here and sit next to me, and that'll make you feel safe. You can always talk about what needs to be done later when the child is calmed down, but not at that time. And then this happens sometimes too, where one child bites another child. So Rahul bites Anjani. And usually, if you don't know about how the nervous system works, maybe you would say, nobody likes bad boys, Rahul. But it'd be so much more better if you could try and say, let's get ice for Anjani. You stay by myself so everyone feels safe this morning. And then later on, when the child is calm, you can talk to the child about what needs to be done. So I just wanted to say some important skills to teach children. I find that when I'm working with children with ADHD especially, they just cannot accept failure at all. So let them view failing favorably. Failing is an opportunity. Let them look at it as it's an opportunity to explore other possibilities, solutions, and resources. Failure is a stepping stone to success. If it is a failure only if you don't learn anything from it. That's when I say you're falling backwards. I got this from Denzel Washington. He was like, when you fall backwards, you're moving away from your goal. But when you fall forward, you're learning. I would say that when you learn, you're falling forward and you're a little bit closer to your goal. So it's very important. This skill, that failing is, it's a part of success. I don't think it's the opposite of success. It is a part of success, and we're getting closer to our goals. So I really feel very strongly, I had said this earlier too, every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection to make them feel safe and supported at all times. It's very, very, very important. So I'm going to conclude with some final thoughts on, the takeaways are here. I think you all already have all the takeaways, understanding what our emotions do for us, what's their function, and then how we can control it. The most important thing that I want all of y'all to really take away is, do we have control over our emotions, or do our emotions have control over us? We all have that. We have the choice. We can change. We can reset our brains, but we need to know how to do it. Parental modeling is the #1 way to teach children self-regulation. Emotional regulation in children comes from emotional regulations in the parents and all the caregivers, and actually everyone who is within their close physical proximity. One of the 2 easiest things you can do is just let them play outside, and the modeling. Those 2 things are very important. There are lots of other things that we can do, but if these 2 things are in place, all the others work a lot more effectively and efficiently. So final thoughts on emotional regulation. So if the information on helping children develop self-regulation feels heavy, it is. It is a reminder that our jobs as parents and caregivers and professionals and therapists who are working with children, who have children in our care, that it's paramount what we do with them in shaping the future of our children. However, none of us can provide a perfect home genetics or modeling. Expecting perfection from ourselves may actually increase tension and negativity. We definitely don't want to be there. So all of us be gentle on ourselves. We are learning too. The fact that you are even aware that you have to change something, I think is 90% of the battle is won. What we need to do is keep working on our own emotional muscles. I have learned so much about stress management, and I'm learning every day. So it's a process. Please don't be hard on yourself. The one thing that you'll have, which is the most precious, is you love your children, and that is the most important thing. So you already have that. You just have to add to your skill sets. So we need to just keep working on it and create a very supportive environment. It's never too late to start. So take a deep breath, accept yourself and your family for where you are in the process, and dive in. It's well worth the effort. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I would love to take your questions now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bala, and thank you so much, dear audience members, for being such an enthusiastic, audience. We could totally see in the chat box it is filled with questions, and also words of gratitude for you, Dr. Bala. People loved your session. Before I start taking the questions, I would like to understand from our attendees today that what is the preferred time for them to, attend a webinar. So what time would you prefer for the webinar to start? If you could quickly answer this poll for me, I'd be truly grateful. Let me remind you that IST here stands for Indian Standard Time, and SGT stands for Singapore Time, which is the same as the timing for Philippines. So yeah, I'll give you all 10 more seconds before I close the poll. And by the way, just to remind you all that this session is being broadcasted live on the Facebook page of Eblity, that is www.facebook.com/Eblity. So if any of your friends or community members who could not join us today, they can definitely watch the session live, or they can watch the video recording later. Don't forget to share it with them. You can also watch all our past webinars in our YouTube channel. So you can go subscribe to that channel and watch the videos that you want to. Okay, looks like most of you have answered the poll. Thank you so much for your inputs. We'll try and incorporate the inputs when we plan the future sessions. Thank you so much. So let's start with the questions, Dr. Bala. We have received questions in hundreds, and we have tried and categorize them into similar questions, and there are some 10 to 12 questions which are being asked by 12s and 15s of people. So let me start by asking you this question. A lot of parents and a lot of special educators also have asked this: what to do to build the interest of the child in studying? So what are your advices and tips?
My advice and tips, of course, it depends on what the child age is. But if you're talking about younger children, I would say you don't have to work so hard on it if they play. Believe me, if you let them play, it resets all their emotions and those neurotransmitters where they would want to play, because every human being, every human child has a love for learning, whether you believe it or not, they really do. And it is up to us, the caregivers, to draw that out. So they are born with that curiosity. And if you get them to play more, it will automatically happen.
Great.
I hope
So
that
love your
answers
child,
it.
let them play more. Maybe that would help. And a lot of parents have also asked us, Dr. Bala, that there are certain children who do not show interest in doing anything. So like you're saying, that if they love playing, let them play. But a lot of parents have told us that their children do not show interest even in playing. So how can we help children like these?
I mean, we need to know, having a child who's not interested in play is unusual. So is there something else going on? There would be a reason why that is happening. So finding out what that is. And every child has something that they like. I'm going to share and tell you that, I remember when I was working with one child, that child was, the way he communicated is spitting and hitting. And I asked the teacher and I said, what does he like? And she was like, he really doesn't like anything. There's nothing that he likes, absolutely nothing. And I said, there must be something. And she said, oh yeah, he likes feathers. And you will not believe, this child was overweight. He was 7 years old. He was overweight. It was a hard time just to get him out of the classroom. And I would just take feathers in my hand and I would show him and he would come running behind me. Imagine, I got him to run when it was difficult to get him to walk. So the trick is, we really have to work. I work with my parents so much because there is something that your child likes and you can use it. We used it then, 1 feather, 2 feather, teaching him math, teaching him numbers, so you have to get in at the child's level, connect with the child because it is there. I have worked with some of the most, like some gifted children and the most involved children. Our job as detectives, we have to be detectives. And if we find out what it is, we can get in there and then explore, but we have to, because motivation is very, very important. And play will release those emotions, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, all those are released automatically. So even if your child is just running, if you run behind them, stop, I can help those parents. That's my specialty, is I can help those parents. So if they are finding it hard to find what it is, I'll give them questionnaires and, we can definitely find out what it is. But if we get the child, you have to go at your child's level. It's a neurotypical child. There are so many things that you can do. Like, again, I'm just going to share what I did with my daughter. She never liked, she didn't have a problem playing at all. But in terms of sharing emotions, I would lie in bed with her, next to her, with the light switched off. She used to feel nice, and then she'll talk. So we have to find out, and no one told me that. As I feel, as parents, we are the experts on our children. And if we try to get into their head, we will be able to help them.
Totally. So be the expert, be the detective, find out what your child likes, and
only
then you'll be able to.
Yes. So
Only then you'd be able to help your child. What a beautiful piece of advice you have shared with the attendees today, Dr. Bala. Okay, so moving on to the next question. A lot of parents have asked us, is it normal for kids to keep forgetting things that they have studied?
Yes, that's a question that I get from teachers and from parents all the time. So remember what I was talking about, all the different pillars? if your child learns under stress, to go from short-term memory to long-term memory, that's not going to happen. So that's the reason when they learn under stress, when you stress them out and that's when they're learning, it does not go into their long-term memory. So really, we have to make them feel safe. And then when they learn that, it's going to go into their long term. I'm saying it in a very brief way, but I know like this was one of the questions that I had one teacher who was a wonderful teacher for autistic children. And she used to tell me, Bala, why does this happen? They know all the answers. Like, I would have worked with it and the next day they come and they forgot. And she's like, but they knew it. I didn't have to prompt them, nothing. But if they learn under stress, and she was very behaviorally, she was ABA trained. And she used to call me the softie. She used to say, Bala, you're too soft. And I'm like, no, it works to all our advantages if we make the child feel safe. I mean, I'm not going to lie. As a parent, I used to feel, I was parented in a particular way. And, if that's what's going to make my child listen to me, I'm going to, make them feel bad about being not a good, not doing something. But I realized it doesn't help. It does not help because when they're stressed, they're not going to remember everything.
Right. Such a useful feedback for a lot of parents and educators, both of them present in the audience today. Really nice. Okay, so moving on to the next question. A lot of them have also asked us, these are common complaints, that my child is not able to concentrate, and what can they as parents or as teachers and educators do to help the child concentrate better?
Okay, so focus and attention is definitely something that I deal with a lot, and I offer that. And again, it's a team effort, and the easy answer is let your child play. And they have to play for at least 30 minutes and their heart rate has to go up. They have to be breathing. They should be panting. You don't have to put something on them to find out what their heart rate is. If they're panting, that's a good thing, but they should be panting and being able to talk. You don't want them to pant and faint, so they should be panting and talking. So you can come up with some things. Now that's something that I really help parents identify what is it that their child likes. And we come up with a program where they can do this. So a very easy thing, like in schools that I would tell teachers, is let the kid just run in the hallway for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, depending on the need. For some children, they need the movement. For some people, they don't. If you're a neurotypical child, it may not look like you need it, but all children benefit. But for a child who's struggling, you can look at it as medicine. Instead of giving, that is the drug that they need, because when you do the exercise, when you are running and when you are panting, those neurotransmitters are flooding the brain and the body with it. So you don't have to give them any drugs. Play, we are built so beautifully, play is going to do it. And of course, if you need more than that, there are some children who need more support. Now, I do offer online just to check focus. There is a standardized test for it. If you can do it online, that will tell the parents what is their child's ability to actually focus. It tells whether they're focusing only 50% of the time or 40% of the time. So at least this way we can, gauge our expectations and maybe modify our expectations. If a child is capable of paying attention only for 30% of the time, then giving them so many instructions and everything doesn't work. So knowing that information is very important. I also offer something else, very specifically for increasing focus and attention. And it's through another program called Play Attention. So there are many things that we can do, but I really believe we first have to set up the foundation. And the foundation is the parent self-regulation, teaching the child to co-regulate and play. And then all the additional supports can be given. So brain gym is a very good thing. If anyone has brain gym close to their place, they should, explore that. They can always get in touch with me too, because we can do it online. It is very effective. I have seen it work. I have actually seen miracles happening with it. So right now for focus, I have neurotypical children who want to excel in studies, who want to do very well in SATs, who want to, get maybe into the medical program or something like that. And they show improvements like a lot faster, a lot faster. I've seen changes like within 4 or 5 hours of doing the therapy. And, so there are many things that you can do. But again, the easy answer is play and how you are giving feedback to the child. Because once a child feels accepted and loved, things are going to take off.
Totally. Great. I hope this helps all the parents out there. Okay, one of the parents of a special child is asking us how to introduce self-regulation to children with special needs if parents themselves are not familiar with self-regulation.
Oh, I'm going to tell that parent that she definitely knows self-regulation, if it is a mother or the dad, because that's what we do. If you're not doing, it's impulse control. It is, what is self-regulation? Is we're controlling our impulses. When a child shows concerning behaviors, one of the doctors said that he basically said it's not bad behavior. It is that they are behaving in an immature way because they cannot control their impulses. So we can teach, there are lots of things that we can do. If I can just tell you what is like, songs like freeze, you have to teach body awareness first. And if she needs help, she can always contact me. I can walk her through it because that's not something that I can answer in a 1 minute. I need to know more about the child to make it very customized to actually get results. But the general thing is, you can have a lot of movement songs, play a lot of things where you do the stop and freeze. So that is teaching impulse control. And there are many, many ways in which you can do it, which are simple. I believe in simplicity. Simple things that parents can do at home, because there are things that we can do. And then, of course, the most skilled things, I could show you what needs to be done, but there are many, many simple things that can be done at home, which even just those, I strongly believe that also can help with self-regulation. So songs, movement, and a whole lot of other things, and she can always reach out to me. I would love to help her out.
Totally. And I would like to inform the attendees over here, if you wish to reach out to Dr. Bala, obviously because of time constraints, she might not be able to answer all your questions in greater detail. If you wish to reach out to her, you can go through our website, and also you can write to us at support@eblity.com, and we will definitely ensure that we connect you to her so that you can be helped better. Okay, moving on. Like you have fantabulously explained what self-regulation is, one of the parents has this doubt that is self-regulation synonymous to having self-discipline? And can this be taught, or is it done through modeling behavior? How can self-regulation be taught rather?
Okay, so she actually asked a very good question. So we don't teach, we model. Remember what I said, that the child is at the emotional brain. So doing it in a cognitive way doesn't work at all, and thinking doesn't have an effect on the viscera, the heart rate and the breathing rate and everything. It is at the emotional. So if you're feeling a positive emotion, you're recruiting the parasympathetic. If you are feeling a negative emotion, it is a sympathetic. With the sympathetic, you have that whole cascade of effects on your viscera. And when you recruit your sympathetic, it actually doesn't allow access to your thinking part of the brain. And that happens even to adults. That's the reason why we say don't react, take some time to respond, don't make any critical decisions when you're stressed out. So telling a child telling them, it doesn't work. It has to be modeling. There's a lot of research behind it. So if you are angry and you are saying you need to relax, no. The way you teach them is you do calming. You have to become calm. And you can't, so whatever you want your child to be doing, you have to be doing yourself. Because you don't have to use words then. You don't have to use words.
Right. And children always imitate you and they follow better, maybe when modeling behavior is used. Great answer, Dr. Bala. One of the questions that has come to us is also this, that can the methods of self-regulation stabilize the autistic child and eventually autism can be corrected or worn off in the later years? Can this happen?
Autism is a diagnosis, and the expression of its symptoms really does depend on self regulation. But the diagnosis, like we have criteria, maybe they'll move up, but the whole point in, because I work with children on the autism spectrum, is we want to teach them how to bring out the potential within them. It's not about making them look neurotypical, because at some level, all of us are different. We are different, we have different capacities, and they just do things differently. So it's not about, making them neurotypical and trying and get them to be part of, the neurotypical society, but it is to find out what their potential is. And I've seen, I don't know if you all watch America's Got Talent, but I think last year's, the person who won it was an autistic adult who was nonverbal, but he sang. I mean, I got goosebumps. And imagine that mother realized this child can sing, and she just realized suddenly one day because the way he was humming or something, and then she gave him all the lessons, and you could see he's very clearly autistic. But he was a happy child. That is success. Happiness is letting your child feel that you accept them as they are. So you want what's best, but you will get what's best when your child accepts and feels like they are loved, they're worthy, they're being accepted for who they are. I feel very strongly about that.
Totally. And I think so. I've been listening to this throughout our webinars. Acceptance is the key. I hope parents get to learn that from this webinar as well. Okay, moving on. A lot of parents have asked us how to encourage kids to follow a routine or timetable on their own without having to force them or remind them time and again.
Yeah, that is a very, very good question. So having a visual, they need to have some sort of a visual prop over there. So if they're younger children, if it is, when they get up and then they have to go brush their teeth, and then they have playtime, and then they have eating. You can just have, if you Google visual props, and you will easily get it from your laptop, and laminate it and put it on your fridge or some place where your child can see. And there are so many things that you can do in terms of, even the child can just check off saying that he did all these things. They feel very good when they check off. So it is, using visual props is important. If the child is older, then you can just don't have to have pictures. I mean, even though I'm an adult, I like pictures. Pictures is so easy. So you could use that. So visual props is a very, very nice way. It's called a visual schedule. They can just Google that and help the child. It's a beautiful way of getting a child to keep to a routine. I in fact find that, the children will come back and tell me, Mama did not do this after this, like if they got up late and so they make the parents accountable and they have to do things at a particular time. But I have to share, during COVID, the parents who kept a schedule, and maybe they don't keep the visual schedule, but it is so important to keep a visual schedule for children on the autism spectrum. It helps them have some control over their life. They know what is expected next and things like that. So parents who had the schedule, they are actually thriving. They are saying that they are doing very well. I was like, I can't tell you how surprised I am. But they were like, they don't have to get up too early to go to school. They don't have the pressure of, because social skills is an issue for them. So I'm having parents who are saying, Bala, as long as we keep to our schedule and when they are awake, we give them our time, they are doing very well. So it's a good thing to hear. It's a very, very good thing to hear, and so a schedule is a very good, please go ahead and use a visual schedule and help your child that way.
I'm sure a visual schedule will help a lot of parents who are listening to us today. I want to take so many other questions that we have received, but since we are running short of time, I hope I have addressed the most common ones, and I'm going to take one last question, and that says, like you were talking about pandemic and using schedules during pandemic. Another question that a lot of parents have asked us is also related to pandemic. I'm sure you would also agree that because of COVID, the screen time for kids has increased dramatically. So, what are the advantages and also disadvantages of this increased screen time, and what can be done about it?
So screen time is definitely something that everyone struggles with. I have parents of neurotypical children also saying screen time has gone up. What it basically comes, screen time per se is not bad, but it is bad when they're not playing and they're not doing other things. Because just looking at the screen, it has some benefits, but it doesn't have the same benefits as playing outside. And again, because that's connected with your neurotransmitters. And we need the brain to be flooded with those neurotransmitters too, to just get them into, to do things. So screen time, I have found with the parents who I have been working with, are the ones who don't have a schedule. And when the child gets up, they can't be with the child. So sometimes they're using the screen as a babysitter. And remember, early experiences is going to shape the child's brain. So if they get used to that, it was used even for a week, I would say, then they know that, humans are lazy by nature. It is inherent in us. So we are going to take the easy way out. So your child is going to take that easy way out. So I think it's not as easy if your child is addicted to the screen 100%, it's not what we want. And there is a way of doing it. Again, you can't just do it, but I can definitely refer them and show them some basic things that they can do. But I feel using a timer, if the child is an autistic child, using a timer, putting that schedule there. Because I find children on the autism spectrum, they follow the schedule because that's part of their diagnosis. They are very rigid. So you want to leverage that, I'm going to just share one thing with you is, with this child on the spectrum, and he was having a hard time during the therapy session, but I always structure my sessions as first it's with songs, which he likes. Then I make him do difficult things. And then we finish off again with, cleanup, because we've taken out a lot of toys and everything, but with songs. And he was having a hard time. I had to take him back to the classroom, and I was like, he was almost having a meltdown. So, but I just started the songs and he knew the routine. So he stood up, smiled, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, he's so, the routine, it made me realize that we've got to leverage it. So you could use a routine, and let them know, use a timer and say, okay, now screen time is over. Now we need to do something else. But it makes us as adults very accountable too. So if we regulate and we see what we are doing, then we can. And if I'm going to be watching a lot of TV and I'm telling my child not to watch, I don't think that's going to happen because they see what you're doing. It's modeling, right? They see what you're doing. So you can't tell a child not to watch TV and you watch TV yourself a lot.
Totally. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Bala, and all the audience members for being a wonderful audience. We're truly grateful to have you here with us today, Dr. Bala. Thank you so much for spending your precious time. And I hope all your advices, tips, and the very precious knowledge that you shared with our community members today is going to help them a lot. Our chat box is filled with thank you messages and words full of gratitude. So I'm sure you'd be happy to read it. Thank you so much for joining.